My name is Ella Morrison, and I have never believed in ghost stories, haunted ships, or any other tales that people whisper about in hushed voices. That is, until I boarded the SS Meridian for a week-long cruise through the Caribbean. It was supposed to be the perfect getaway, the ideal break from the humdrum of my everyday life, and after months of stress, I was desperate for rest. But as I stood at the edge of the dock, watching the massive vessel slowly pull away from the shore, I felt a strange unease settle in my chest. It was more than just the typical nervousness of setting sail into unfamiliar waters. It felt like a whisper at the back of my mind, something faint but persistent, warning me to turn back. I shrugged off the sensation as nothing more than nerves. I had never been on a cruise before. I was probably just overwhelmed by the size of the ship and the excitement of the trip. My friends, all of us in our late 20s, had been planning this for months. They were all in high spirits, excited to hit the pool deck and sip cocktails while the sun bathed us in warmth. The ship was enormous, several stories tall, with multiple swimming pools, bars, restaurants, and lounges. The SS Meridian was known for its luxury, and the brochure promised unforgettable experiences and five-star service. My room, a small but charming suite with a balcony, was located on the 6th floor. As I unpacked, I gazed out at the endless stretch of water, my mind wandering to the strange feeling I had about the ocean. I couldn't shake it, even when we set sail. The first night on board was surprisingly uneventful. The ship's crew hosted a lavish dinner party, where passengers mingled, and drinks flowed freely. I wore my best dress, a sapphire number that shimmered in the dim lights of the dining room. The evening was full of laughter, but I felt distant from it all. It was like I was watching everyone through a thick fog. That night, as I returned to my cabin, I thought I saw something, just a flash of movement near the edge of my vision. At first, I thought it was nothing, just the natural sway of the ship or the shadow of the curtains fluttering from the air conditioning. But then it happened again. I turned around sharply, my heart racing, but there was nothing there. I shrugged it off and locked the door behind me. The bed was calling, and I was exhausted. The soft, rhythmic hum of the ship as it cut through the ocean waves was oddly soothing, and before I knew it, I was asleep. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of soft music floating through the air, a haunting melody that seemed to come from nowhere. At first, I thought it was just the ship's speakers playing some ambient tune over the loudspeakers. But as I opened the curtains to look outside, I realized it wasn't coming from the deck. It was coming from below, deep, like a distant echo from the water. I furrowed my brow. It was strange. The music was beautiful but unnerving, as though it had no source, like it was being sung by the ocean itself. I leaned out over the balcony, staring at the water. There were no other ships in sight, just endless waves stretching out to the horizon. After a few minutes, the music stopped, leaving behind an eerie silence. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination, that I had heard something on the wind. But it wasn't the last time I heard it. The second night on board was when things started to get unsettling. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a soft tapping at my door. It was faint but distinct, like the sound of fingernails gently rapping against the wood. My heart skipped a beat, and I sat up, staring at the door. At first, I thought it was a prank, one of my friends, perhaps. I opened the door, but no one was there. I glanced down the hallway, which was bathed in dim emergency lighting, but it was empty. I closed the door and locked it again. I didn't think much of it at first, but then the tapping began again. More insistent this time. My blood ran cold. This wasn't right. I opened the door once more, this time with a sense of dread crawling up my spine. The hallway remained empty. I stepped into the corridor, my pulse hammering in my throat, and followed the hallway toward the stairs that led down to the lower decks. The ship felt different at night, more oppressive. The walls seemed to hum with something I couldn't name, and the air smelled strange, salty, almost metallic. Then I heard it. The soft, mournful music. The same haunting melody I'd heard earlier, floating through the air like a whispering siren's call. I turned on my heel, rushing back to my cabin and locking the door behind me. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't just the music or the tapping. There was something else, an overwhelming sense that I wasn't alone. That something was watching me. I tried to dismiss the thoughts as paranoia. After all, it was just a ship, right? Nothing to be afraid of. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The next day, I tried to put it all behind me. The tapping, the music, it all seemed like a trick of my tired mind. I spent the day with my friends, lounging by the pool, attending trivia contests, and indulging in the endless buffet of food. The ship's entertainment was top-notch, and I was doing my best to enjoy the trip. But that night, everything changed. I was in my room, watching a movie on the small television in the corner, when I heard a voice. Soft, like a whisper, but so clear that it sent a chill down my spine. It came from the balcony, right outside my door. Ella. I froze, the blood draining from my face. My name, clear as day. But I hadn't opened the door. I hadn't heard anyone approach. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering in my chest, and cautiously approached the door. I held my breath, listening for any sound on the other side. Silence. I opened the door a crack and peeked out. No one. The hallway was still and empty. The music, though, was back, faint but undeniable. It came from below again, as though someone, or something, was calling out from the depths of the ocean. I quickly closed the door, but something inside me told me that the ship wasn't as safe as I'd once thought. Something was wrong. Something was waiting. The following day, I met a woman named Marissa at the ship's cafe. She seemed nice enough, a fellow solo traveler, and we quickly struck up a conversation. Over coffee, I mentioned the strange occurrences I'd been experiencing, things like the music, the tapping, and the voice. Her face paled as I spoke, and her eyes darted around as if she were afraid someone might overhear. "You're not the only one," she whispered, leaning in closer. "I've heard it too. The music, the voice. It's not normal." "Then what is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Marissa glanced around again, making sure no one was listening. "It's the ship. The Meridian, it's cursed." I raised an eyebrow, thinking she was just caught up in some ridiculous superstition, but she continued, her voice trembling. "The ship is built on the site of an old wreck, an ancient shipwreck. The ocean, it's restless here. Some say it's the spirits of the lost sailors, but others say it's worse. The ship's been sinking for years, in a way. It's the water that's taking it, dragging it down into the depths." My stomach turned. I didn't know what to believe. Was it the truth? Or was it just a wild tale spun by a nervous passenger? That night, the music returned. This time, it was louder, more insistent, like it was calling me. But now I understood, something on this ship wanted me. And whatever it wasn't going to let me go easily. The tapping at my door returned, louder and more frantic than before. The music surged in intensity, and I could feel the ship beneath me groaning, as though it were coming alive. I ran to the balcony, looking out at the water below. The sea had turned black as pitch, no moonlight to guide me. But then, out of the darkness, something appeared, something pale and translucent, floating just above the surface. A woman. Her long hair floated around her like seaweed, her arms reaching out toward me, her eyes hollow and endless. I gasped, stumbling backward, but before I could react, I heard the voice again. "Come to me, Ella."
As the final echoes of the tale fade into the darkness, remember this: in the shadows where fear takes root, the true horror lies not in the creatures that lurk, but in the darkness within ourselves. We tell these stories not just to scare or entertain, but to confront the fears that we try so hard to ignore. So as you step back into the light of the real world, carry with you the lessons of the night. The monsters we create are reflections of our deepest anxieties, and the strength to overcome them is within each of us. Sleep well, and remember, in the realm of fear, we are the true masters of our fate. Good night, and may your dreams be free of shadows. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and click the notification bell for you to see my future update on this channel. Stay safe and always remember to lock your doors.